Okay, I guess I should correct myself on the number of dimensions. Um, Actually, it's not correcting myself as so much as clarifying. Okay, because we talked about the number of dimensions before in another series, and I'm still getting emails about it. Because science has figured out that there's like 10 dimensions, right? But the scientists are behind, true advanced entity mentality by, I don't know, maybe 100 years. Uh, so they know that there's like 10 dimensions, right? But there's actually, remember we talked about this, there was actually two more dimensions beyond that. And we're in the third dimension, okay? All right? And this is all like a big science project that's in a big elaborate lab, okay? See, instead of picturing God as this spooky, phantomy figure, picture him more as like a brilliant mad scientist who is faced with the dilemma of a population um, contaminated and infected with a virus of self absorption and greed and self serving and self worship and shit like that, where you have these entities that created this mess that we have here on the spirit scan, these premonitions of monster existence. It's like they're monsters, they're premonitions of monsters, and they won't be allowed to exist. But it's like, okay, it's all in a laboratory. Well, okay, if it's a 12 dimension experiment, right? Then and it's in a laboratory somewhere, then that laboratory would be the 13th dimension. Okay? Are you with me? Are you keeping up? We talked about the 12 dimensions. We talked about how we're in the third one. Okay? We're in the third dimension in this 12 dimensional um, thing. And all dimensions are required for the other dimensions to properly function, to keep it in balance. It took 12 dimensions to keep it in balance and keep it going on its own. Okay? Now, it's in a laboratory, and this is where people got lost. I didn't give it. I don't give people everything. All of it all the time. It's like some of it you have to study and research and figure out on your own. And I just took it for granted that if we're talking about a 12 dimensional um, experiment, uh, mechanism, whatever you want to call it, um, in a laboratory somewhere, that you would know that there's 13 dimensions, right? Um, so, now I'm having to backpedal, but I don't know. This study that y'all are bringing up is 2 years old. I took it down. It's 3 years old. I took it down 2 years ago. And so somebody must have downloaded the video and put it back up or something, or captioned it and put it up, as as a blog post. I don't know. You're coming at me now about stuff that, you know, um, yeah, it's old stuff, man. And yeah, I forgot half the stuff I said in that video. Um, but there's like, yeah, we talked about the 12 dimensions and the laboratory, and seeing God as like the scientists and Christ and Lucifer. They're all there. This is all their thing, their project. They have a conjoined end time agenda that involves Lucifer coming back here pretending to be Jesus Christ and ruling the planet for the tribulation, which is it's been shortened down from 7 years to a growing season, so that the women who will be ravished by the angels, they'll be fucking the angels willingly, not raped, because advanced entities are not brutish, they're not violent. That's shitworms. They're lesser caliber spirits. The ones that are in control right now got everybody acting so violent and brutish. Rapists and pedophiles and shit, murderous, genocidal, greedy as fuck. That's shitworms. They're impotent. You know, because they don't have no bodies to have sex with, so they're all angry and shit. And they're still sabotaging shit like they were way back when they sabotaged history. You know, the earliest history is sabotage. It's like, it's all fucking lies that they concocted and they influence people to do. Just like Satanism, it's all concocted. Lucifer has been incarcerated for 2,000 years now with his interdimensional past, as described in the book of Job, revoked. So he has not been able to externally motivate mankind or influence them in any way. So he could not have had a Black Bible written. He does not want babies sacrificed. You know, the sexual sacrifice, y'all are doing it wrong. You know, you don't know what the fuck you're doing. You don't even know where he's at. You don't know that he's in God's realm right now. You don't know that he's coming back here pretending to be Jesus Christ. You don't know why the tribulation got shortened, because they're not rapists. The women are actually going to throw themselves on their dicks. It's like, you know, goddamn, you don't know shit. So God didn't want there to be, discrepancy about what the impregnation was. So he had to shorten the tribulation for the elect's sake and for the clarification of, you know, his own thing, what he's doing. He's not talking about physical impregnation. The women can be forgiven for fucking the angels. That's not an unforgivable sin. But what is unforgivable is to accept them as the real angels. Okay? I mean, if you know that they're not the real angels and you're fucking them, well, then you're just committing a sexual sin. Right? Where you commit a spiritual sin is when you accept the imposter, fake, phony instead of wannabe. You know, anti, when referring to, you know, the Antichrist that's coming to rule the planet, it's properly translated as imposter, fake, phony instead of, or wannabe. Put any of those descriptors in the place of anti, and you have a better understanding of who we're talking about. All right? Now, if you accept him as the real Christ, then you've committed, you become spiritually impregnated by him. You know, that's a greater offense than anything physical you could do with him. Okay? And it's like the unforgivable sin, blasphemy of the Holy Spirit, that can only be committed by, you know, the elect of God who know these things in advance and accept them as truth. And only at the moment when they're brought before him. Okay? If they refuse to let the Holy Spirit speak through them, through their mouth, just freestyle speak to him, you know, not preformed thoughts out of their minds, but the Holy Spirit speaking through their mouths to him. If they refuse to allow that at the moment when they're brought before him, because we're all going to get brought before him, you see, when he gets here, those of us who are still alive, it's like, then they are committing the unforgivable sin if they do that, if they refuse, if they chicken out, or if they decide not to allow the Holy Spirit. That's the blasphemy of the Holy Spirit, what that's really talking about. That unpardonable sin can only be committed by, you know, a small percentage of people, known as the elect, who, you know, they know that the first Christ coming is not the real Christ, okay? And they know that the Antichrist does not mean somebody that is against Christ, like the government is trying to do. They want to uplift this Muslim, Islamic, infidel religion and government, you know, so they're stupid. They don't understand that it's actually talking about a supernatural, spiritual entity that's coming back here pretending to be Jesus Christ, you see? So, you know, they don't even bother to try and translate shit. They just act on loose translations. Kind of like this chick did, you know, made a movie based on a magazine article, you know, and then, you know, vilified the hero. You know, the guy whose idea the whole thing was, had him portrayed as somebody that's against it. And now they're accepting this is like fact. It's ridiculously funny to see these people accept things that are the opposite of fact as fact. You see? So they accept the opposite of fact regarding God, Christ, and Lucifer as fact. They accept the opposite of you know, their reality as fact. You know? They don't understand what heaven or hell is. That hell is just a holding cell. You know, you ever been to the drunk tank? Yeah. It's like the lake of fire. That's just a holding cell. It's like what it actually is when you get thrown into the lake of fire. You're going into the time loops of justice as your victims, and victims of your influence and your ripple effects victims, victims of your omissions, the things you were supposed to do with your power and influence and money that you didn't do. You know, those victims, animals and people, it's like you were bought with a price. And, both entities, Christ and Lucifer, want you to do good unto those that need you to do good unto them. So there's no entity whose turf you're on right now who wants you to do evil. This is part of, what's been being hidden, right? The shitworms that, pretend to be oracles, and they pretend to be reptilians, and they pretend to be Anunnaki, and they pretend to be all this fucking weird shit. They pretend to be devils. They're not qualified to be devils. They're impotent little violent bitches, okay? They didn't even know themselves that they're going to be time looped as their victims. Yeah, those that they caused to suffer. Oh, they wanted bodies? Oh, you're going to get to be in some bodies now, baby. Yeah, because until the perpetrators are eternally executed, those time loops of the things that they did are there. All of Hitler's things that he did are there. Now his regime carried on. His regime is now ruling America. Okay? So those that are ruling America are going to be time looped not only as the victims that they're creating now, and the victims that were created with Obamacare and with the terrorist attack that was the illegal tax breaks for the wealthiest percentile and all that shit, which includes animals that had to be euthanized due to an economic crisis. It's like, not only will they be time looped as all of those victims, but they get to be time looped as all the Jews during the Holocaust because they're part of the same regime. They carried on. They signed on early for a penny. They're going to get their penny at the end of the day. They're going to get their what they signed on for, but they didn't know what they signed on for. They didn't know because it was hidden. The prophecy of Daniel was hidden. That that we're on a spirit scan. That we're mere premonitions of our existences right now. You see, you come here, it goes down into the belly sweet, but then it starts hurting because it's poisonous. You come here and you do evil shit, and you don't find out. You don't realize that you're going to be victimized because you use the prophecy of Daniel to decipher the scriptures, and suddenly things make more sense. Like, do unto others as you want done to you in the time loops of judgment after you die, when you get time looped as them. See? Yeah. The wages of sin is death. Yeah, eternal spiritual death. So that via the time-space continuum, you're never allowed to exist to negatively affect those you negatively affected. You see? There's the prophecies about the non-existent. Negatively affecting and angering, enraging the existent. You see? That's happening right now. You got a lot of non-existent, premonitions of existence who don't realize that they're not going to be allowed to exist, that they're going to be time looped as their victims and victims of their influence and decisions and their omissions, and then they're going to be eternally executed so that they never get to commit the sins that caused them to be time looped as those victims and then be eternally executed. You see, it's diabolical what God has done here. And the wealth of the wicked, those that don't make it back, they don't graduate the spirit scan, those that we just talked about, it's like that wealth that they laid up in escrow gets passed on to the new world, to those who do graduate. So there's no shortage of resources. Isn't it beautiful? So you got, billions that are going to be wiped out, right? You see? It's like they don't realize that we're in a spirit scan. They're cocky in their non-existence. Maybe they should watch a movie like Final Destination and just how that kid had a premonition and then lived it to understand, to give them a clue at least, right?